You're sexy, so good to me.
Hey, this is Sir Charles Carey. I want you to join me on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. for the Tru-Mu podcast, True Music. That's where we talk about all things.
I'm a musician, singer-songwriter, producer, engineer.
All things creative.
Me and my co-host, Carl T. Smith, the smooth one, will be glad to hear you, glad to talk to you, answer your questions, and talk all things music. The Tru-Mu podcast, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard. Be part of the energy.
I can see that thing that makes men stop, stand still, all in denial, suffer loss of will.
That's it, folks. It's that time again, the Tru-Mu podcast, where we talk about all things music. True Music is what it stands for. We talk about all things music, all things creative. It's myself and none other than the smooth one, Mr. Carl T. Smith.
What's up? What's up? How you doing?
It's all gravy. It's all gravy. Yeah, man. How you feeling, man?
I'm good. You know, a little tired, but I'm all right.
All right. That's all good. Yeah. Had a great weekend myself. My daughters and granddaughters came up to visit me, and we had a great time, you know, sharing the new digs with them and taking them out to eat and all that good stuff. So we did the whole family thing. So what more can you ask for, you know?
Not much. Sounds good. Sounds nice.
Yeah, man. Look, surrounded by beautiful women. What more can that fella ask for?
When I grow up, I want to be like you, man.
Well, man, that's a tall order, but I'm sure you can achieve it. Yes, sir. But today, folks, you know, we talk about all things music and all things creative because that's our passion. That's what we do. That's what we're known for. In some cases, that's what we live for. Today is no exception. Today we have a guest. I'm gonna say how we say it when I'm home. We have a guest from around the way, and this gentleman, we're gonna learn a little bit more about him. Some of you know him, and some of you will be meeting him and learning about him for the very first time. So I'm gonna introduce to you Johnnie Castro. Castro, what it do? What it do?
What's good, fellas? How y'all feeling, man? I appreciate the
Good,
invite.
good in you.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate the invite.
Yeah, look, man. I'm doing the same thing that they do on the Drink Champs, same thing that they do on the R&B Money podcast. We're gonna go from the beginning.
I got you, man.
So look, man. So tell us where you're from.
So originally born and raised Brooklyn, New York.
That's
New
it.
York.
That's
where I'm
enough.
originally from. That's
it.
Where I'm originally from. Born and raised, man. And I moved down here by the grace of God, man. My brother was able to pull me out of Brooklyn, get me back on the right track. His name is Tru Castro. And yeah, man, brought me down to the DMV. I got acclimated, met my beautiful wife down the line, Miss Lala Hadid, R&B neo soul recording artist, Miss Lala Hadid. And yeah, man, it was all uphill. Yep, that's my wife, bro.
Okay.
Yep.
Now you said get you on the right track. So I'm assuming that means you must have crossed to the wrong side at one point.
At one point, man, I was just going downhill. Let's just leave. I'll leave it at that. Going the wrong direction.
But you know,
right. Yeah. I mean, you know, just making the wrong decisions, man. In regards to schooling, you know, the right path, and you know, figuring out what I was going to do in regards to what the streets look like, and just making all the wrong moves, man. And things were piling up, and my brother was able to pull me out of there because he knew it was necessary, man. So you know, I owe a huge pat on his back. I lost my father at 7 years old. My mom's at 5. So and was raised by my aunt Harriet, man. And you know, she did a phenomenal job bringing me up, and then my brother and my sister kind of took over from that point. And you know, they was just, you know, it just got to a point of where like I was putting myself in a position where things were becoming very overwhelming, and a change had to happen. You know what I mean? And change is never comfortable, man. You know.
So let me ask you this: when you were making that transition or going through that transition, how difficult? I'm gonna let Carl jump in right after this. I want to ask you, how difficult was it making that transition from New York here?
It was very difficult, man. You know, like my first. Now I came down here. I was just turning. I was about to be 17, about to be
Oh,
17 years old. So I was young, man, and that whole now how I grew up. I never really been outside of Brooklyn like that. I mean, I've been on a few trips with the family. You know what I'm saying? And not even to be funny, I hadn't even been around white people like that.
no, I
So,
understand.
I'm used to growing up around the Jamaicans, the Puerto Ricans, the West Indians, you know what I'm saying? And the closest thing I got to white people really was like the Jews, or if I'm cutting school and I'm shooting out Coney Island or something, I'm out there with the where the Italians is at. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
so that was the closest I got to it. But the vibe was always different in New York. Like that was, you didn't go through the Jewish neighborhood. You knew not to walk up Kingston Ave after a certain time because the Jews had their own little quote unquote gangs too, and
No doubt.
they run you right up out of the neighborhood. So it was just certain territories that you didn't go into. Not to mention with the stresses of having to deal with the territories that you grew up in. You know what I'm saying? During my
Absolutely.
era of Bloods and Crips was real heavy. So, I thank God that I never fell into that bracket, but I knew a lot of them. And so the influences were always there from a street perspective, man. And, I dabbled a little bit, but I'm also a church kid too. I'm a PK. So, you know what I'm
Oh,
saying? And yeah, so during that entire time, you know what I'm saying, I was doing my dirt from Monday through Saturday, but on Sunday, my butt was in church and I was playing drums for my church. So,
trying to keep it on the
so you know
low.
what I'm saying? Yeah, yeah. You know what I'm saying? That was the typical quote unquote, like the spiritual gift was already installed in me and it was already there and manifested in my life. And I owe that to my Aunt Harriet for keeping me in church, you know what I'm saying, and pulling me that direction. My brother is a highly talented musician producer as well too. And so, his just being up under him musically, it was already being installed in me, you know what I mean? My
Those
sister sings.
influences were seeping in slowly but surely, huh?
Absolutely. Surprisingly, I didn't. So by the time I got down here, this was in 90, 98, 99, going to 99. By the time I got down here, I moved to Gaithersburg, Maryland. And we was staying right off of Muddy Branch Road. And so it was that transition, yo, it was crazy. Like when I moved down here, I was like, yo, it's mad slow. Like even down to you like not even being funny, the surprising elements of the area was just brand new to me. You know what I'm saying? I'm used to the concrete jungle. So, seeing all the grass. I remember coming down Muddy Branch Road and I don't know if y'all familiar, it's like a Navy like reservoir research center that's over there on
Okay.
Muddy Branch.
Okay.
And I'm seeing all these deers and whatnot. And I'm like, yo, what is that? Like a zoo? I'm thinking it's the zoo. It's like that's all, it was all brand new to me. So I had never been outside that element, man. So, but coming down to the DMV really changed my perspective on, the music scene and it got my focus back because it was so slow. So I
But
didn't
that's
have
so
the hustle
real,
and bustle of
man.
the street.
There's so many of us. Go ahead, Carl. I'm gonna let you jump in, Carl. But that's so real because so many of us we grow up in our neighborhoods or in our hoods, as we say, and that's the extent of our awareness and our exposure. So I totally understand. Carl,
Absolutely.
what you got?
At what age did you get into music?
So I would probably have to say at age 6, man. I could pull up photos and everything, man. I was dabbling on the keyboard because my brother was heavily into music. He was in the rap game real heavy down in Brooklyn, and he transitioned over to gospel as he got older and then and gave his life to the Lord. And so just that influence of hanging with him in the studio, the late nights, watching him record, watching him produce, I didn't even realize all of that was being put into me. I started playing drums at church at 6 years old. So,
Wow.
and that was being spiritually led. I remember sitting in the back of the church. Well, I was sitting next to one of the older brothers that I used to sit up under. And I was like, man, I want to go play drums. So, it was an afternoon service. So, I'm assuming like they gave the opportunity of like, all right, let's see what he can do. It's not like a main service, let's
Right.
bring him up there. Man, from that moment on, I was playing drums every Sunday in church, man. So
Wow.
the spiritual gift, and I don't recall prior to that other than seeing baby pictures and stuff where I had sticks in my hand because my brother played drums and and he still plays to this day. So I never anticipated that I was going to end up being a drummer, but
Mm,
didn't even realize that was the just the beginning of the calling that God had on my life as a musician. Period. Because I also play keys, I
instruments do
also
you
play.
play though?
So I play keys, bass, drums, and a little bit of electric guitar as well. And then I'm
Wow.
heavily into production as well too. So yeah, so stepping into that realm of I didn't pick up the bass being my primary instrument. I didn't pick up bass until I was 18. I was about 18, 19 years old when I first started playing bass.
Remind me of the smooth one. He does so much, man. I'm like,
Got to do a whole lot of. You got to do a whole lot to stay in this business. I tell you that.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
man,
Wow.
you do, man. But
So what is your primary or your go-to, right?
that's my go-to instrument. The funny thing is how I picked it up. So the church that I was attending in Gatesburg, y'all got
I
me.
don't know. Okay, there you go. Okay, you came back.
Y'all hear me?
Then right there,
All
right
right,
Back
there.
my
now,
bad, my
yeah.
bad. I'm sorry. I'm using my phone and a phone call came through. I just had to decline it real quick. But yeah, so the initially the church that I was attending, um, is drummers all one thing about I can say about the DMV, DMV got a lot of drummers. So I knew for a fact, like, me coming into a church, the likelihood of me being able to get a position as a drummer, you got this kid from Brooklyn, he from out here, we don't really know him like that. And one thing I've learned about the DMV, a lot of it is connection. You know what I'm saying? So that transition, y'all still there? I think I lost y'all, man. Hello?
We still
Yeah,
here. We
Carl, y'all
just
still
gave
there?
it the
Oh,
floor.
all
Yeah.
right, my bad. But yeah, man. So the transition was, we didn't have a bass player at the church, and so I had never played bass before. So I was just like, now mind you, I was just like getting clean into playing keys a little bit, playing auxiliary keys at the church, strings, lead lines, stuff like that, and just running horn synths. And we didn't have no bass player, so every now and then I run key bass just to follow around. And then I was like, yo, you know what? I'm gonna go out and get a bass, man, and just
Mm-hmm.
see how that go. So I went and picked up a bass. And I remember I'm about to date myself. I went to the video store and picked up a VHS of learning how to play bass, right? And it was
VHS,
all
huh?
country. It was yeah, VHS, bro. Threw it in a VCR, and so and it was all country music. And so I was like, all right. So I knew enough of country music to know like it'll give me my foundational notes because the patterns are moving real slow. The movement is basically your one, three, six, and then probably five and back to the one. You know what I mean? Real simple
Mm-hmm.
patterns and they repeat. And because I was on the keys a lot, it was real easy to teach myself the notes. So I knew the challenge was just learning the fretboard. Once I could
Mm-hmm.
learn them first four frets of where everything is, I just needed to translate that to the rest of the fretboard. So started out on the four string, was bringing the bass to church every Sunday. I was at Faith Apostolic Temple at the time, and so I don't know if y'all know anything about apostolic churches, man. They real hand clapping, and I grew up in a Pentecostal church in Brooklyn, so everything is real shout based, real fast tempo and everything like that. So the chops was there in regards to speed, but it was just putting it in context of learning what to play, knowing when to play it, and why you play that note there, how it accompanies what they're playing in the chord. So building that whole transition, I stuck to it on bass from there, man, and I became the bass player for the church. Within a 2 year time period, I was traveling on tour with a band called the Lloyd Dobler Effect, signed under Universal Studios.
Nice.
Yeah, man.
Nice.
So audition, I took a chance, jumped out there, auditioned with this band. They had just gotten signed by Universal. The producer was out of Steely Dan's studio. He was producing majority of the music. Cut my first full bass album with him. And yeah, man, it was uphill from that. Spent about 2 years on the road with them, back and forth, overseas, everywhere, man. Did a bunch of traveling with them.
What a
Was
wonderful
coming
experience.
yeah, was coming back home and still playing on Sundays. and just stuck with it from there, man. Then I got into the production real heavy. Well, around the time I met my wife, man, and she was already into the music scene, singing in different groups, the police band, stuff like that. So, yeah, man. So that was like that was that whole journey and that
Uh-oh.
transition. I had never knew, man, would I be doing the things that I'm doing, you know?
Got you. What else you got, Carl? You got something else?
So you got into the production. What made you get into, producing?
It costs money to bring the hot cats in here, right?
There you go.
So
I
so
thought I just
so
wanted to hear
you
somebody else say it.
nah, man. So the crazy thing is creativity is in everybody. You know what I'm saying? And what may sound old to you as the musician sitting there constantly playing it or recording it, it's brand new to somebody else's ears. And it's
Hmm.
always so, and I've always been a strong believer that, if my music could reach one person, then I've accomplished something. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? There's a listening ear for everybody. Music is a universal language. So, to me, in my opinion, there's no song that is just outright bad, or it just may not be to my liking, but somebody likes it. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And then, getting into the whole, where it goes as far as the industry, because it's competition at the end of the day. It's a who you know at the end of the day, who can get your foot in here. You get into my focus and appreciation to my brother was teaching me the game of the industry and understanding of how to own rights to all my material, how to create and get, building my ASCAP up, building my BMI up, and making sure that I got those accreditations and I don't walk myself into a situation where I'm being taken advantage of as a producer. But yeah, when you start to learn the pricing or what it costs to get some of these high level name cats in here to re-articulate your ideas, I was like, yo, I got to get in here and grind. So then you put the work in, you put more practice in, and you put your gift to the test and your talents to the test, and you say, all right, how well can I produce this? And then you get the right people around you who also may or may not have those same opportunities that you have, and you put them in a place because of what you believe in them, and help them you basically hand them your material. And you say, yo, how can you re-articulate this? How can you
Right.
fatten it up? You give them that opportunity, and then that same respect of you taking the royalties for what you've done, you can now afford those royalties to them. And you open up doors for other people. So when you start to open up doors for other people, that opens up doors for you as well. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, but ultimately, I would have to say it was the focus of like, yo, it costs money to make money. So the first thing I need to do is put my own feet on the ground and get running and start hard with this production level and start putting my ideas out there for myself.
You know what they always say, man. You can't keep it if you don't give it away. So
That's
yeah,
right.
no doubt, no doubt. One thing I was thinking about, knowing that you were going to come on today. You've been in, how long you been playing in church? Since you was like what, 6 years old? You said, right?
About 6 years old. Yep.
So you've been playing at least 20 years. Can I say at least that?
I would probably say longer than that, man. I'm
Hmm.
42 now. So,
Wow.
yeah, I'm 42 years old, man. So,
So
and
then
I
you
would
already, go ahead.
say that one more. No, no, my bad, my bad. I didn't mean to cut you off.
You already know the answer to the question I'm going to ask you, but go ahead, finish your statement.
Yeah, I was gonna say, man, I don't miss a heartbeat. At the end of the day, man, my heart is dedicated to Jesus Christ. So, if I can go out there and and share music to the world, and also implant that spirituality that I have within me to reach those that will not step into the church building, I take that opportunity to do so on the platforms that I do have.
So we know that music has always been a part of the African experience, the African American experience in particular. Whether it was just a tambourine, a hand clap, that old organ, old broke up piano, a stomp on our feet. Music has always been a part of our experience in church and everything like that. However, it
Mhm.
seemed like to me, and Carl, we talked about this about a week or so ago. It seemed like nowadays music is so prevalent, of course, in its modern approach. When did that really start from your perspective? because you can't
So
tell
I would
R&B
probably, man,
from gospel.
I honestly, the crazy thing is that's when you really get into the spiritual side of it because, not all one music is created by God. Everything is created by God, right? And so it's what we do with it that determines the destination that it's going to land in. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah,
the intention of what you put behind the music. Like I said, it's a universal language. So it's who you're attempting to communicate to and how that wants to be driven. Um, because the gospel's installed in me, like there were a lot of times early in my production skills where I had to make sure that a lot of the changes in the feel that I was putting to certain songs, I don't want to make that sound like church. You know what I'm saying? Because that's not being
do me a favor. Do me a favor. Say that again because you froze a
or the
little bit.
audience that I'm trying to reach in that regard.
Do me a favor and say that
That
again.
don't mean that I'm taking the church out of the music. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So the feeling of is that a little bit better?
It's just a little lag off and on.
Is that a little bit better?
Yeah, now.
Can you hear me now? All right,
Yeah.
cool, cool. I'm gonna try to
Got you.
step out of the studio. I was inside the studio. I'm gonna
Okay.
step out here for
It's
a
all
little bit, see if it's a little bit stronger connection. So yeah, so I was saying music is a universal language, you know what I mean? And at the end of the day, it depends on what that target audience is. So if a lot of times early in my production, I used to have to make sure that when I was recording that I wasn't putting gospel feel to an R&B song that I was looking to produce. With the R&B song, a lot of times with the R&B, it's a lot more pocket and a lot more groove to it than what we do with gospel music. And at that time, I came up in that era where the Hezekiah Walkers, early Kurt Franklin era, where that was real heavy. Kurt Franklin was one of the main artists that was starting to reincorporate that R&B feel or that secular feel back into the church. We
right.
used to like growing up. I couldn't even like if I doubled up on a snare or if I'm doing a double kick or certain chops, like we would be looked at by the organist like, yo, we don't do that in here. You know what I mean? So it was it was that type of until you got to a place of where it was accepted in certain churches or they allowed you to explore that or bring that in there because the dynamic of most churches now is that era of we've be able to express their connection with God the way that they want to do it versus what we trying to program them to do it as. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
when most churches got out of that element, it opened the door for people to be able to kind of articulate the music and where the music became more appreciative in the sense of like this is how I want to show my expression to God. But at the
Yeah.
same time, you also got to be careful with that too. So a lot of times I pray for discernment in regards to my creation of music, where that my music is clean enough that I could sit in front of my pastor and play it. I could sit in front of my mother and play it, but it's also pleasing to any audience.
Yeah.
So I think when you approach the production from that mindset, that helps out a whole lot.
I look back. I've recorded 5 albums. One was covers, jazz covers, but the other four all original. And when I look back, because I didn't think about it at the time, on each album or CD or project, however you want to say it, I realized that there's one song at least with an inspirational message which gives homage to God. And in
Absolutely.
this last album, I was ready to make a typical, R&B, soul, whatever, pop, whatever you want to call it, song. And I decided before I put lyrics to it that I wanted to give it to the Lord. And that's what I did. Now, my intentions were right and my intentions were pure. And I make no bones about it. I realize that sometimes you may hear the music and be like, oh, that joint is banging, but it's still paying homage to God.
Hmm. Absolutely. I get
So
it, man. At the
Yeah,
same time, I have a song. There's a song on my first album, Journey with Me, Volume One. At the end of the album, is a song called "I Never Would Be More Than I Am, or All That I Am and All That I Want Without God in my heart."
right.
So, I'm doing the same thing that I'm doing in the majority of the rest of the songs, where I'm playing some solo bass over the songs. I'm grooving over the songs. My brother's actually playing on that, and I specifically had my brother play on that because where I was musically in the completion of that album wouldn't be what it is if it wasn't for the God using my brother to get me out of Brooklyn, because that album probably would have never would have been there. So it was very significant, and the reason why I had to have him play percussion on that album for me, and play it specifically on that song, because I was like, yo, that album was a complete, like, at the end of it, paying that homage to God and saying, everything that you heard before this would never be if it wasn't because of him. So,
It's
is
funny that you saying that because I did on my previous album, I did a song called "A Just Life," and even though my
oh yeah.
brother's not with me,
Hmm.
I found a cassette of him speaking in the 70s, and I transferred it over to an MP3 and I listened to it, and I took a portion of that dialogue and I put it on the song, and that was out his and my connection for that particular song called "A Just Life." He was talking about the fact that if you live if you live your life a certain way, you will have a just life, and that's why I
Absolutely.
titled it that, and I recorded that. But Carl, what else you got?
So you play drums, you went into playing bass, you say you play a little guitar. You when you do your productions on a regular, right? Or
Hmm.
when you do it, are you hitting all the instruments, or are you calling people most of the time, or on a
I
regular?
do. So what I'll normally do is, I'll actually record all the instruments myself for the most
See?
part, and
Mm-hmm.
then I send it out to the band, and then I have my band come in. I'll say, yo, learn the foundation of what I did. Come in and play what you want to play, and then let's
Okay.
piece it together. Because one thing, like, at one point, I got to a space in my production level of where, you almost, as a musician, you can kind of repeat yourself. I always tell people the hardest, like, even when I'm giving bass lessons, sometimes I'm like, I could never teach you feel.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one thing that I could never teach you, because the music has to come from your heart. Everything that I play is not I went home and practiced it. Nah, I went home and practiced the foundation. I learned everything that I was supposed to learn. What you heard was what I was feeling on top of the foundation. And so, I always, anytime I pass the music along to the rest of the band members, I say, hey, you know what? I need you guys to articulate this the best way possible. I need you to, make sure that you're feeling the song. And if you're not feeling the song, I'd rather you not play on it. Because if you can't play what you feel, that means the song didn't mean that much to you in context to say, yo, you know what? I probably could have did better or could have had a better approach if I'm feeling the song. So
Mm-hmm.
now, naturally, when I'm recording it, 9 times out of 10, I'm usually feeling the song, because I'm feeling what I'm recording, because that's the idea that's actually pouring out. So in some
Mm-hmm.
cases, there have been some cases where I've kept my keys, or I may have kept my lead guitar parts in there and didn't call anybody for it. And I say, I'm gonna leave that in, and I'll get a second, third, fourth opinion on, like, what they think about it. And I usually won't tell them that I played it, and they be like, "Yo, who cut guitar? Who cut? Oh, yo, that joint sounds good." Then so that kind of gives me a reference of, all right, I don't sound like myself, because when you start to sound like yourself, you start to hear it in all the instruments that you can play, even in your passes, even in some of the licks that you could play. You know what I'm saying? You start to realize you end up repeating yourself sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
and that, as a solo bass player, I think that's one of the and I think this is for any musician that solos, but you try your best not to repeat the same solo, and you try to articulate it in a way of what you're feeling. So, like, I got a few concerts that I have on my YouTube page, that's actually online, where I've done duplicate songs, but the solos are totally different.
Because
Wow.
it feels different when you do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So is your production solely gospel, or do you do other genres?
Oh nah, I play everything, man. R&B, neo soul, jazz, pop, hip hop, you name it, man. I don't shy away from any style of music. Again, like I said, music's a universal language. So if I'm gonna go, I the funny thing is, man, my son was laughing at me one time. He jumped in the truck, and I was listening to Mongolian metal. So Mongolian instrument, these Mongolian instruments, they were a bass player was actually only playing a two-string bass. And
Wow.
so it was crazy to me how he was getting the tone that he was getting out of the handmade bass that he had with only two strings, and the way the guitar player accompanied the bass notes. Now, even his lower tone notes, I'm like, man, what modifications you would have to do to your bass just to get that low end without the strings, being just completely floppy. So those, listening to that style of music kind of like intrigued me on different approaches. If you haven't, definitely check out my album Journey with Me Volume One and Volume One, and I have different styles of music on there. I have an Arabian style cut song on there. I've got your Latin styles on there. I've got your standard jazz feel, and then there's some R&B stuff. And this second album I'm looking to release late summer. Gonna be the goal is to actually do a live concert. This
Oh,
will be a
okay.
this will be an unplugged release. So it's gonna be a nice setup, man. And this project is solely more R&B, way more R&B than what the first album was. So
Yeah,
yeah, I'm definitely open to all different types of genres.
in my production, sometimes I look at Indian and Asian or African instrumentation,
Hmm.
just because it's different and to experiment as I explore. But are you also a vocalist?
I do it. So let me tell you, man. My wife, I know she's probably watching, and so I know she's gonna be like, he better answer that the right way. So I sing, but I don't sing. I'll leave it at that. If you
Gotcha.
look online, you'll find a couple of songs where I'm actually singing on, and yeah. So I dabble a little bit enough. I just say I do enough to lay the idea down, and my
Okay.
wife's like, no, you're keeping that. You're keeping that. And I'm like, all right, nah, I just don't like to hear my own voice. That's what it is in a nutshell.
It
But
goes back to
but yeah,
feel. If she says that, that means it's going back to feel. The feel in that song, whatever song that is, it happens to be right in her ears. So
yeah,
it's all good.
yep. And and on the album I'm definitely singing some background on there too. There's a song that we share together, me and my wife did together called Baby I Love You. That's on the album.
What's the website?
So you can head over J Law Productions, JLAH Productions with an S on the end .net. So jlawproductions.net. If you click on there, hit the menu button, you'll see and go to my press kit. My wife's press kit is on there. My daughter's press kit. That's actually our company. J-Law Productions is our company. And we do some
Okay.
of everything through the company, man. Event management, live sound, and everything. So that's also some of the other stuff that I do as well too. Mixing and mastering engineer, certified in mixing and mastering. I have my own studio and everything. So the albums and everything that you actually are hearing, I did all the mixing and mastering on it myself.
Nice. Nice.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe one day I'd like to maybe work with you on something, man, on the project, man. That'd be nice.
Absolutely, man. I would love it, man. I would love the opportunity, bro.
Yeah. Wow. So, we've been talking a little bit about, how we've gotten here, and I always have a kinship from anybody from up top. That's just, I can't help myself being a New Yorker. Um, it just is what it is. What would you suggest, or what advice would you provide for someone that's either just getting into the business or that's interested in just getting into the business? They want to record or they want to become an artist. What would you uh, say to them?
I would first say to them, I would say, my first question to them would be, what type of money are you looking to make? That's my first question. And the reason why I say that is because if you're getting into this business just for the love of the money, you're not going to go
Mhm.
far. You'll be disappointed probably within your first 3 months. because the amount of money that you would spend alone just on your band being able to fully give you the needs that you need for your gig, you're gonna be broke. You're gonna be out of pocket. Second, work a 9 to 5. So this way you have a backup option. Third, make sure you have insurance. Make sure you own your house and you're not just renting an apartment trying to do this. So those would be like the first, the first couple of priorities that I would say knock out. Obviously, have you a ASCAP and BMI set up. Make sure you so this way you can receive your royalties. Open your own company so this way you have the ability to write off your own stuff to your company and not just be paid directly out of pocket.
Yeah, man, because I ain't gonna lie. I'm a sucker and a fool for this thing called music, man. And like, I can't help myself. I'm addicted to it. I love it. I've been loving it all my life. And it's just a part of who I am. And I realized that, especially when a number of years ago, I stepped away because I too was making a transition in life and I had come full circle and I knew that something was missing and I didn't know what it was. And when I realized what it was, I went back to it. And when I went back
Hmm.
to music, oh my goodness, it was like, like orchestration, everything just brightened up. My whole
Right.
world was like, just completely different. And I felt fulfilled in being a part of it and being around other musicians, so I definitely understand. I think that's perfect advice because if people have illusions of grandeur, they think, oh, I can rap or I can do whatever I do and it's just going to be all this, and it might, but it might not. Now, do you still love it?
Oh yeah, absolutely, man.
You know what I mean?
That's major, man. It's you gotta have a love for music in general first. I often ask people the question. I say, if you had the skills that you have, you get in there and you produce song after song after song, and no one ever heard it, does it still count?
Mm.
Does it still mean something? Because the approach, like just to have the mindset of like, yo, I just, yeah, you do music because you want to get paid from it, you want to be able to grind and you want to make the money, but it comes at a cost too. You know what I mean? So like at the end of the day, I toured for 2 years. I always wanted to be on tour. I toured for 2 years with major artists on the gospel scene. I played for a bunch of major artists. So I've done Jonathan Butler, Rita Twigs, Paul Morton. So I've been in those areas in those arenas to play in those arenas. But what happens when you come back home? What do
Mm.
you have? So, I always say, I would love to sit down with a lot of these younger musicians now or this younger generation. And I say, when you get back home, what stability do you actually have? You know what I'm saying? Do you have life insurance? Do you own your home or are you rent? And given everything that's going on in this country now, man, it's crazy. Like if you're not in a position to where you're just doing like where you're not doing anything outside of just the music, at some point there's somebody behind you that's ready to come up behind you. They're watching everything that you're doing. They're learning from you. They're incorporating that in their gifts and talents, and they're going to take it to the next level. And before you know it, you'll be sitting back supporting. And so the question will be, what have you gained over that time to position yourself to where you are, to figure out what contribution to the music industry have you been, and what can you sit back on in retirement at that point? Because I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't, I can't expect to be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be gigging at 80, 90 years old if God foresee me to see that. At that around that time, I want to be able to see my grandkids run around. I'm a father of 6, so
Okay.
I'm expecting that somewhere down the line that me and my wife's kids that we're gonna they're gonna be bringing us some grandbabies home that at some point in time. You know what I mean?
Look,
So it gets to a point of where
look, I have no idea how I'm going to be when I get to be 80 and 90, but I'm willing to
right.
step up to the challenge.
Listen, man, I'm not saying, and that's the thing. I'm not saying that my intent is to hang my instrument up.
No,
That's
no, I
that
get
that is never my intent. All I'm
yeah.
saying is that it's the stability side of it because sometimes these younger artists and these younger musicians, they're chasing the dream and they
Mhm.
chasing the bag and they not thinking this about the stability behind it. You know what I'm saying? So many
Good point.
cats go on the road and then when they get back home or they get these major opportunities and then when they get back home, it's like they ain't got nothing else to go to from the stable point. So you know
Yeah.
what I mean? But
Yeah.
so yeah, like I think, but again, I think it's just setting yourself up in the beginning to be able to own and have rights to all of your material and everything that you own. Because when you sit down at these record label tables, they're fronting you the money first, and they're saying, "All right, yeah, we'll give you this." Well, you obviously that's no different than you taking a loan. You got to be able to make that money back for that company. So if
Uh,
you can't
I
contribute
think
that,
Carl knows a thing or two about that.
it's a
yeah,
little
man,
worse because you're not paying it back in money. You're paying it back in
that's right,
service. So
exactly,
everybody thinks like, you get $100,000, but you don't. You get $100,000, you can't pay it back. You got to pay it back in
exactly,
service, which people
exactly.
don't
So
understand. You know.
yep. And I've experienced that, man, being on the road, with some of these guys, man, and seeing the opportunities that were presented. I was just like, yo, all right, well, what are we doing when we get back? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Good luck. Good
what's
luck
the
with
next?
that,
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So,
right? Good
so
luck with that.
and I've had my share of and a lot of it has been trial and error too.
Of
You
course.
learn not to take after a while you learn not to take some wooden nickels. You know what I mean? You know how to communicate, and you get your entertainment lawyer, you bring them to the table to make sure that you have the right things for you, that protects you, that gives you the right guidelines, and that puts you in the position where you need to be. You know what I mean?
Yep. Sure. You're right. And you begin to learn. You begin to understand or listen or hear um, when it's not right. You know.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, man. But yeah, and I have been wanting to do a clinic for a long time, man, for some of these younger musicians, man, putting something together and having like a real serious conversation with them and just sit down and say, all right, yo, like where are you at? Where do you plan to be at within the next 10 years? You know what I'm saying? So
I'm
like,
working on
just
something I definitely want to pull you in on that's along those guidelines. So I'm glad you said that.
I
absolutely,
guess
bro.
we all got something like that.
Yeah, man. I would definitely be down to do that, man, because one of the things that we do here at my company, a lot of clients that do come in, we get a lot of young artists that come in, want to cut singles, stuff like that. And when they do come in and they rent the time, we also educate them on what they need, what they
Nice.
should have, and we try to position them. And it's not for us to, and we don't take any credit from it. We use that opportunity and that platform to say, yo, I have the ability to share with you and give you the tools that are necessary and what you need to be able to get you on the right track. So this way, when you walk out there and you have to sit at the table with somebody and you can't afford that entertainment lawyer or you can't afford that person to sit there and speak on your behalf, you at least have some detail in what it is that you need to have done so nobody don't get over.
Right. Like I say, the right mindset is all you need, man. When you get
Yep.
that right mindset, you can massage things accordingly as far as the path that you're walking to get the reward or to achieve the goal that you're after. So yeah, it's important to be a part of the energy as well. Yeah, man. So how important, I know we're getting close to the end, but I want to ask you, how important is mentoring or coaching as it relates to the music industry?
Oh, I think it's very important. It's the every opportunity that you get, and I still even get mentored by some musicians, man. I definitely still ask questions. I think as long as your mindset is you're never too old to keep learning, like when
Hmm.
you put limits, the moment that you put a limit on yourself, then that blocks you from any additional learning experiences that you would need to get in order to help further propel your music career. So don't put limitations on that. Listen to everything, even if it's bad news, you still want to hear it because that gives you the perspective of like, oh, this is what I could possibly run into. So and a lot of stuff is some stuff just has to be a learning experience. Some stuff you may disagree with, and it's actually right, and you're like, nah, I'm gonna do it this way, and then you walk into a scenario where like, oh, I probably should have listened. They definitely
Yep.
warned me about that. So when you start to close your ear to listening to the experiences of other musicians, how they get to the level that they got to, or why they did this, why they practice this way, why they respond this way. One thing that I see a lot of musicians don't practice is the integrity side.
Mm, True.
and that's real.
Now
You
let
know,
me
you got.
ask you this, because
Mhm.
Carl, you chime in too, man. I think, and I know every artist is different. Your art, your creativity is yours. Birth it, massage it how you want. But I think there should be a certain respect for the process of being a part of this industry, whether it's songwriting, whether it's putting a gig together. Now I know everyone wants to do their thing their way, but I think this is, again, this is me. Maybe because I'm this old school. There's a process in learning how to do something, and there's more than one way to do it. But you should honor and have respect for music. Don't just expect someone to give you the thing. You should understand what it consists of. Why is it done that way? So that when you're doing it, not only can you appreciate it, but it has more value. That's just
Right,
me. Is that
right.
crazy?
I don't think that's crazy. I mean, I agree with you in that regard. You know, and again, I think it's also one of the scenarios of before you actually even come to the table with that artist, lay out the guidelines before the conversation is had or before any transactions take place. If there is, because I've worked with some artists where you come to the table and they say, "Hey, this is what I want. I want it like this," and that's that.
Right? They don't
And
care
that's
about
it.
nothing else.
Right. So, and they don't care about nothing else. They don't care why it has to be done this way or why they should do it a different way. They want what they want, and that's all they get. Now, in some scenarios, I've been in the studio where I'm engineering, and because people know my skill set or they may know my expertise in certain areas, they ask questions. And I say, well, I'm not going to answer that question for you unless we're going to sit down and discuss the guidelines and what you're open to receiving in regards to that question. Right now, I'm just your engineer. And if you're asking me your opinion, my opinion as an engineer, here's my opinion as an engineer. But I'm not telling you what to do
Right.
because you got to be very careful with that because in most cases people 9 times out of 10 we do what we want to do in a sense. Once your mind is kind of made up, you asking somebody for an opinion about something doesn't really hold any weight because you've already made your mind up on what it is that you actually already want. You just asking them is just the formality of asking. So it's not even there's not even a respect level of, oh, I respect your experience or your expertise beyond that point. You're just asking just for the sake of asking. So
Yeah.
that's why I say before you even get to the point of where, all right, we're creating music, all right, we're sitting down engineering or doing whatever the case is, have that conversation up front.
Yeah.
Communication is everything. You know what I mean? You had that conversation up front, the lines are drawn out. We understand what it is that we're both bringing to the table. Then it makes everything else flow easy.
Yeah. Carl, what you got?
So back to your production and stuff. What tools are you using?
So I mainly record out of I love recording out of Logic. Logic is one of my go-to programs. I just
Hmm.
love the workflow. A lot of times I do mix out of mixing and mastering. I was heavy into Pro Tools back in the day. I stopped using Pro Tools around 10 and 11 before they basically started charging crazy prices for the
Hmm.
program itself. But I heavily got into Logic, mixing and mastering through Logic, and then also using Studio One version. Now I'm on version 6, but using that as a mixing and mastering tool, depending on how many songs I was doing at one time.
Hmm.
So yeah, those are like the main programs that I use inside the studio itself. I'm running 64 inputs, PreSonus Studio Live, stage box setup, and everything like that. All live instrumentation in there as well. As far as productivity, I still got a couple of record players that I utilize. So, when cats want samples and stuff like that. So, yeah. So I mean, those are like my go-to production. As far as software and analog gear, I moved away from all analog gear. I would probably say, oh man, maybe 2001, and then
Mm.
That
I got
late,
heavy.
2001.
I did
I'm I'm
because
I'm I'm,
the,
I'm messing with
at
you,
the
man.
man, listen, at the end of the day, it's nothing like analog sound. But
No,
as
I
Waves,
agree.
when I became certified in my mixing and mastering, Waves plugins begin to start developing a lot better codec. And so I actually do networking, software engineering, and things like that for the federal government. So when they started integrating new code for a lot of these plugins and sampling the analog gear a lot better, I went into the digital platform, but a lot of my mastering is still analog.
Ah, okay.
Yep. So as far as the mixing, I went completely digital, but as far as the mastering level, I started going more analog.
That's all right. That's all right, man. Well, man, I definitely appreciate you taking time out your day and taking time away from the family just to spend with us, man. And like I
Absolutely,
said,
bro.
want to
It's an
connect
honor,
with
man.
want to connect with you on for some other things down the line, and let's see what happens, what comes out of it. Carl, you got anything else before we close out?
Great meeting you. Great talking to you. Hopefully, great things, will continue to happen for you, and hopefully we'll meet.
Absolutely, Carl, man. Great meeting you as well, bro. Charles, man, and nothing but love, man. Please
Yes,
share
sir.
my number. Make sure you share my number with Carl too, man. Let's stay connected.
Absolutely.
Definitely keep me in the loop on on getting this little get together done, man. And
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah,
definitely down for it, bro. I'm connected to a bunch of musicians who are definitely around my age who definitely could share some insight and man could be a great inspiration to a lot of these younger cats, man. I think
Well, y'all,
I
y'all
think
too
it's much
old for
needed.
Carl because he's only 21, so he won't even be able to relate.
All good,
21.
man. All good, bro.
But
Hey,
look,
listen, man. We never too young and never too old to learn, bro.
you already
21. I'm 21 for the next 50 years. Don't worry about it.
I'm with you, man.
folks, if you was just joining us, we were speaking with Johnnie Castro, multifaceted, multi-talented musician, artist, and producer. And any questions, please, I know I should have said it earlier, but please feel free to post your questions. We'll get back to you in the replay. Just whatever questions or comments, whatever it may be, feel free to post those comments, post those questions. We'd love to, get your input, get your feedback. And for those that are staying plugged in on April 25th, I'll be in La Plata, Maryland with John R. Lewis at what's the name of that restaurant? It's a Thai restaurant in La Plata. Just come on down. There's no interest fee. Just grab a plate of food and check out the show. And then in May, I'll be with the Smooth One once again in the Bronx, coming back to the Boogie Down, doing what we do at the Rafael Hernandez Auditorium. We're going to keep the true love flow going because that's what we do and that's how we get down. So with that being said, folks, until next time, be part of the energy and radiate the brain and change the game. Hey, this is Sir Charles Carey. I want you to join me on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. for the Tru-Mu podcast.